All right, welcome back, guys. Today we're going to go over some homework assignments. As you see, you have a chapter test at the end of the week. So I want to make sure that you have an opportunity to have all your homeworks gone over. Tomorrow and Wednesday we will be reviewing, so that'll give you some time to look at your old homework assignments and the review sheet I hand out. In general, you should look back at your old homeworks. I mark them up when stuff is wrong. So look back and make sure that you understand each topic. If not, you should be coming on to our Google Meets, which start at 12:52, from 12:52 to 1:07 every day. If you come on Wednesday, that's probably not a good day to show up if you don't understand all this material. All right, we had to determine if the sequence was geometric. If I look at this, I'm multiplying by 3 each time. Since I multiply by 3 each time, yes, this is geometric. What's our common ratio? Our common ratio would be 3. Those are all negative, so it's just 3. Now it says find the eighth term. Before I do that, I'm going to find my explicit formula and recursive formula. So the explicit formula is u sub 1. So u sub n equals u sub 1, which is negative 1 times 3 to the n minus 1. So this is our formula for the explicit. For recursive, remember for the recursive formula, it's u sub n equals 3 times u sub n minus 1. Yep, that's what that says, minus 1. Now let's find the eighth term in the sequence. So to find the eighth term, I'm going to just multiply this out or plug an 8 in for my n. Negative 1 times 3 to the n minus 1, which is 7. 3 to the 7th is 2,187 times negative 1 gives me negative 2187. So find the 3 terms in the sequence after the last one. So in order to do that, I'm really just going to use my recursive, which is negative 27 times 3. That's negative 81 times 3, which is negative 243 times 3, negative 729. And at this point, if I want to check my answer to see if it's right, I could do times 3 and get negative 2187 to make sure that my u sub 8 was right. So this was negative 81, negative 243, and negative 729. On to the next one, geometric. Multiplying by a negative 5 each time. I can tell that this is geometric because it's a negative 5 each time. Usually whenever the sign flips, you know it's going to be a negative. So that's my common ratio, negative 5. Explicit form, u sub n equals, and then it's 2 times negative 5 to the n minus 1. Recursive form is u sub n equals u sub n minus 1 times 5. Negative 5, sorry. Find the eighth term in the sequence, u sub 8 equals, I plug in 8 up here. That's 2 times negative 5 to the 7th. Negative 5 to the 7th power gives me negative 78,125 times 2, which is negative 156,250. In order to find my next 3 terms after the last one given, I'm just doing negative 250 times 5, times negative 5. That gives me 1250 times negative 5. Gives me positive, or negative 6250. Wait, I messed that up. That's going to be negative 6250, yeah. And then the next one is going to be times negative 5 again, which will give me positive 31,250. Multiply that by negative 5 just to check my use of 8, and I get 156,250, and that's going to be negative. All right, I'm going to start skipping that last part where we do threes. This one, negative 9 times something gives me negative 21. Easiest way to figure that out is to do negative 21 over 9. Multiply that by whatever you get there, by 21, and see if it gives you negative 33. So I do negative 21 over 9. That gives me negative 2.3 repeating times negative 21, which would have given me 49. So that's not going to work. So that's not geometric, which makes this an easy problem for us. No. Number 4, multiply by 3 each time to find the next term. That gives you my common difference, which is r. Find my explicit form. U sub n equals 1 times 3 to the n minus 1. Recursive form, U sub n equals 3 times U sub n minus 1. Find my 8th term. I'm just going to plug 8 in up here. 8 minus 1 is 7. So U sub 8 is 3 to the 7th, which is, you should know that, 2187. And then you would just find your next 3 terms by multiplying. It would be 81, 243, 729, and then 2187. Down here, multiply by 4 each time. That's my common ratio. Explicit form is U sub n equals U sub 1, which is negative 4, times my common ratio of 4 to the n minus 1. Recursive formula, U sub n equals 4 times U sub n minus 1. To find U sub 8, I just plug an 8 up here. It gives me 4 to the 7th times negative 4, which is negative 65,536. And then find the next 3 terms. You do negative 256 times 4. That gives you negative 1024. Then negative 4,096. Then negative 16,384. Then multiply that by 4 again. That gives you negative 65,536, which is exactly what I got for U sub 8. Number 6, do 4 times 5. That gives me 20. 20 times 5 is 100. 100 times 5 is 500. So my common ratio is 5. Explicit formula, U sub n equals U sub 1 times 5 to the n minus 1. Recursive formula, 5 times U sub n minus 1. Find U sub 8. It's going to be 4 times 5 to the 7th. 5 to the 7th is 78,125 times 4 gives me 312,500. Find the next 3 terms of the sequence. I would just do 500 times 5. That gives me 2,500. Then do that times 5, which is 12,500, and 62,500. And checking U sub 8 gives me 312,500. Number 8, negative 3 times 4 gives me negative 12. Negative 12 times 4 is negative 48. Negative 48 times 4 is negative 192. Common ratio is 4. Explicit formula, u sub n equals negative 3 times 4 to the n minus 1. Recursive formula, u sub n equals 4, sorry, not negative 4, just 4 times u sub n minus 1. Whenever I get back to finding u sub 8 for number 7, it's the same way I've been doing it. Negative 3 times 4 to the 7th. Do 4 to the 7th times negative 3. That gives me negative 49,152. Getting a little bored with this assignment because it is the same thing over and over again. So I think this is going to be the last one I do from this assignment. Multiply by negative 5. Unfortunately, you guys don't have that option. You have to do as many as I assign. Explicit formula, u sub n equals, now it's 1 times negative 5 to the n minus 1. Recursive formula, u sub n equals negative 5 times u sub n minus 1. Find u sub 8. That is equal to negative 5 to the 7th. Which is negative 78,125. I hope by now you get the point in how to find each one of those. It's just the same thing over and over again. All right, let's move on to the next assignment. This was geometric sequences day 2. So the first term, u sub 1, and the common ratio r of a geometric sequence are given. Find the sixth term and the recursive and explicit formulas for the nth term. Top part, exactly the same as what we've been doing. I'll do a couple just so you can see them. My explicit form is u sub 1 times r to the n minus 1. If I'm finding the sixth term, that gives me 5 times 2 to the 6 minus 1, which is 5. 2 to the 5th times 5, which is 160. Recursive formula is just 2 times u sub n minus 1. To find, that's it for this one. Number 10, same thing. I'm not going to go over it just because we just did a whole worksheet on this. Let's go down to the kth partial sum of the geometric sequence with a common ratio r. These are important to remember how to figure these out. K is my number, so I can set up my partial sum based off of that. Partial sum from 1, k equals 1 to 6. Now I just do my explicit formula of 5 times 1/2 to the n minus 1. So that's how the partial sum would look. In order to do this, we don't need to find each term. Remember, there's a formula for this. Our formula is a sub 1, or u sub 1, which is 5, times 1 minus r to the n, 1/2 to the 6th power, over 1 minus 1/2. It gives me 5 times 1/2 to the 6th, is 0.015625. Do 1 minus that value, gives you 0.984375 over 0.5. And then times 5, and that gives us our value of 9.84 375. That is an ugly one. If I was to do this and add it all up, I would get exactly that same thing. Okay, last one, because I don't want to bore you to death, and I just realized that your part 3 assignment is due today, so wouldn't make sense to give you all the answers yet. So for this one, we're looking for use of 1 equals 9 times 1 minus 1/3 to the 6th, or sorry, to the 8th power over 1 minus 1/3. This one I'm going to do just for fun, not converting it to a decimal. I mean, it's not really all that fun, but it gives me 9 times 1 minus 1 over 6,561. I got that by taking 3 to the 8th power and 1 to the 8th power. Obviously, 1 to the 8th power is going to be 1. 3 to the 8th gives me 6561. And that's over 2/3. Subtract that out. That gives me 9 times. Now, in order to do that, I have to get a common denominator for this top part of the function, or of the equation, I guess. It's not a function. But I have to get a common denominator of 6561. So I multiply the top and bottom by 6561, then subtract 1. That gives me 6560 over 6561, all over 2/3. I can flip to 2/3 and multiply. It gives me 9 times 6560 over 6561 times 3 over 2. (6561) can be divided by 3. In other words, these two will cross out. The 6561 becomes 2187. 6560 can be divided by 2, which crosses these two out. This gives me 3280 on top. It's an ugly 8. So now I have 9 times 3280 over 2187. Now I just multiply. When I do that, my 9 will cross out with this. I'm left with 3280 over 243. Which, let's see if that can be reduced. It cannot. So that's my final answer. I could also turn that into decimal form and call that 13.497498. And I wouldn't be upset if you rounded that off to just 13.5. Okay, tomorrow we'll go over the third geometric sequences assignment, and we will get our first part of a review. The next day I will go over the review. So tomorrow I'll just go over this assignment. Wednesday I'll go over the review that I gave you, and then Thursday and Friday you will take your chapter test.